Time for a short story by Joaquim Maria Machado de Assis from Brazil. Story about a 30-year-old with a 17-year-old. 30-year-old woman, of course a woman's sexual prime is 36, and a male's is 18, so you gotta love a story about a 17-year-old and a 30-year-old. Here we go. It's called Midnight Mass. I have never quite understood a conversation that I had with a lady many years ago when I was 17 and she was 30. It was Christmas Eve. I had arranged to go to Mass with a neighbor and was to rouse him at midnight for this purpose. The two-story house in which I was staying belonged to the notary Menezes, whose first wife had been a cousin of mine. His second wife, Conachao, and her mother had received me hospitably upon my arrival a few months earlier. I had come to Rio from Mangrabita to study for the college entrance examinations. I lived quietly with my books. Few contacts. Occasional walks. The family was small. The notary, his wife, his mother-in-law, and 2 female slaves. An old-fashioned household. By 10 at every night, everyone was in his bedroom. By 10:30, the house was asleep. I had never gone to a theater, and more than once, on hearing Menez say that he was going, I asked him to take me along. On these occasions, his mother-in-law frowned, and the slaves tittered. Menezes did not reply. He dressed, went out, and returned the next morning. Later I learned that the theater was a euphemism. Menezes was having an affair with a married woman who was separated from her husband. He stayed out once a week. Conchiquicao had grieved at the beginning, but after a time she had grown used to the situation. Custom led to resignation, and finally she came almost to accept the affair as proper. Gentle Conisica. They called her the saint, and she merited the title, so uncomplainingly did she suffer her husband's neglect. In truth, she possessed a temperament of great equanimity, with extremes, neither of tears nor of laughter. Everything about her was passive. Her very face was median, neither pretty nor ugly. She was what is called a kind person. She spoke ill of no one. She pardoned everything. She didn't know how to hate. Quite possibly, she didn't know how to love. On that Christmas Eve, it was 1861 or 1862, the notary was at the theater. I should have been back at Mangrabita, but I had decided to remain till Christmas to see a midnight mass in the big city. The family retired at the usual hour. I sat in the front parlor, dressed and ready. From there I could leave through the entrance hall without waking anyone. There were 3 keys to the door. The notary had one, I had one, and one remained in the house. "But, Mr. Noguero, where will you do with all this time?" asked Conachico's mother. "I'll read, Madame Ignacia." I had a copy of an old translation of the 3 Musketeers, published originally, I think, in serial form in the Journal of Commerce. I sat down at the table in the center of the room, by the light of the kerosene lamp while the house slept, mounted once more D'Artagnan's bony nag, and set out upon adventure. In a short time I was completely absorbed. The minutes flew, as they rarely do when one is waiting. I heard the clock strike 11, but almost without noticing. After a time, however, a sound from the interior of the house roused me from my book. It was the sound of footsteps in the hall that connected the parlor with the dining room. I raised my head. Soon I saw the form of Conchiecos appear at the door. "Haven't you gone?" she asked. "No, I haven't. I don't think that it's midnight yet." "What patience." Conchiaco, wearing her bedroom slippers, came into the room. She was dressed in a white negligee, loosely bound at the waist. Her slenderness helped to suggest a romantic apparition quite in keeping with the spirit of my novel. I shut the book. She sat on the chair facing mine near the sofa. To my question whether perchance I had awakened her by stirring her out, she quickly replied, "No, I woke up naturally." I looked at her and doubted her statement. Her eyes were not those of a person who had just slept. However, I quickly put out of my mind the thought that she could be guilty of lying. The possibility that I might have kept her awake and that she might have lied in order not to make me unhappy did not occur to me at the time. I have already said that she was a good person, a kind person. "I guess it won't be much longer now," I said. "How patient you are to stay awake and wait while your friend sleeps. And to wait alone. Aren't you afraid of ghosts?" I thought you'd be startled when you saw me. When I heard footsteps, I was surprised, but then I soon saw that it was you. What are you reading? Don't tell me, I think I know. It's The Three Musketeers. Yes, that's right, it's very interesting. Do you like novels? Yes. Have you ever read The Little Sweetheart? By Mr. Machado? I have it in Mantagriba. I'm very fond of novels, but I don't have much time for them. Which ones have you read? I began to name some. Conchieco listened, with her head resting on the back of her chair, looking at me past half-shut eyelids. From time to time she wet her lips with her tongue. When I stopped speaking, she said nothing. Thus we remained for several seconds. Then she raised her head, she clasped her hands and rested her chin on them, with her elbow on the arms of her chair, all without taking from me her large, perceptive eyes. Maybe she's bored with me, I thought, and then aloud, Madame Conchieco, I think it's getting late, and No, it's still early. I just looked at the clock. It's 11:30. There's time yet. When you lose a night's sleep, you can stay awake the next day. I did once. I can't. If I lose a night, the next day I just have to take a nap, if only for half an hour. But of course I'm getting on in years. Oh no, nothing of the sort, Madame Conchiaco. I spoke so fervently that I made her smile. Usually her gestures were slow, her attitude calm. Now, however, she rose suddenly, moved to the other side of the room, and in her chaste disarray walked about between the window and the door of her husband's study. Although thin, she always walked with a certain rocking gait as if she carried her weight with a difficulty. I had never before felt the impression so strongly. She paused several times, examining a curtain or correcting the position of some object on the sideboard. Finally, she stopped directly in front of me with the table between us. The circle of her ideas was narrow indeed. She returned to her surprise at seeing me awake and dressed. I repeated what she already knew, that I had never heard a midnight mass in the city and that I didn't want to miss the chance. It's the same as in the country. All masses are alike. I guess so, but in the city there must be more elegance and more people. Holy Week here in Rio is much better than in the country. I don't know about St. John's Day or St. Anthony's. Little by little she had leaned forward. She had rested her elbows on the marble top of the table and had placed her face between the palms of her hands.